There was once a wealthy couple who had been blessed with their very first child. Their home was filled with joy, laughter, and celebration. Every relative and friend came to rejoice with them, for a child is truly a blessing. But as every new parent knows, the journey was not easy. Sleepless nights, endless feeding, and the cries of a newborn began to take their toll on the couple. To ease the burden, they decided to hire a young maid named Ngozi to help care for the baby. At first, Ngozi appeared humble, gentle, and trustworthy. She lowered her head respectfully when she spoke, smiled warmly at the couple, and carried herself as though she were the perfect helper. The family felt safe leaving their precious baby in her hands, never suspecting the darkness hidden behind her face. In the first few days, everything seemed fine, but soon the baby's behavior began to change. The once cheerful child who giggled at every little sound now grew restless. Whenever Ngozi drew near, the baby would cry uncontrollably, clinging tightly to the mother's chest. The mother sometimes wondered, but she comforted herself, saying, "Perhaps this is just normal baby behavior." The father too dismissed it, thinking nothing of it. But behind closed doors, when no one was watching, Ngozi's mask fell away. Her gentle face hardened, and her soft voice turned sharp. She pinched the baby whenever it cried, shook the child roughly when it would not stop, and sometimes left the little one hungry for hours. What should have been tender care turned into quiet torment. The child grew weaker, its once bright eyes now filled with fear. The laughter faded, replaced with sobs that echoed through the house. A neighbor occasionally heard these strange, painful cries and wondered what might be happening, but there was never enough proof to question the family. Time passed, and the father began to notice tiny scratches and bruises on the baby's tender skin. The mother, too, observed that her child always shrank away from Ngozi's touch. But both parents struggled to believe that the girl they trusted, the one who smiled so sweetly, could be capable of such wickedness. Finally, their worry became too heavy to bear. One day, they decided to install a small hidden camera in the house. Days later, they sat down to watch what it had recorded. What they saw broke their hearts. On the screen, Ngozi was not the gentle helper she pretended to be. She was shouting at their innocent child, slapping it when it cried, and tossing it carelessly as though the baby were a burden and not a blessing. Tears filled the mother's eyes as she pressed her hand over her mouth, unable to believe what she was seeing. The father clenched his fists in silent rage. Both were overwhelmed with grief and anger. One evening, the mother returned home earlier than usual. She entered the house quietly and walked toward the baby's room. What she saw froze her heart. There was Ngozi again, yelling and roughly handling her baby. The mother's scream shook the house. The father rushed in, his face dark with anger, and together they confronted the maid. This time, there was no denying the truth. Ngozi stood speechless, her lies collapsing around her. The couple dismissed her immediately and handed her over to the authorities for child abuse. Then, holding their baby close, they wept. They wept for the pain their child had endured, but they also gave thanks that the truth had been revealed before greater harm was done. From that day onward, the couple vowed to be more careful, more prayerful, and more discerning. They promised never to entrust their child blindly to another again. For children are treasures from God, delicate and precious. And not every smiling face hides a loving heart. As the scripture says in Proverbs 27 verse 6, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." Dear listener, let this story be a lesson. Trust is a gift, and it must be given wisely. Be vigilant, be prayerful, and protect the little ones God has placed in your care.